So my name's Sean. I'm interviewing Brian down at your studio in Dayton. So the first question I wanted to go over was, how did the Air Force impact you? You know, you served in there. Did you think that impacted your artist or your style?
Well, it definitely made me a little bit more disciplined going through the Air Force, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
You grew up in Virginia up until basically high school, and then you moved out. How do you think the Virginia versus the Ohio art scene, or even Portland art scene, changes? How do you think those are different?
Oh, well, the Virginia art scene is a little smaller than both the Dayton and the Portland art scene.
Mm-hmm.
The Portland art scene is way bigger, but it's becoming commercialized and it pushes people out. And the artists are getting pushed out of the city either way because Portland is got a constant influx of people trying to move there.
For your studio, you're working the space with your wife. You guys are both painters. How do you think it differs from being in a different space, or as a solo artist versus being married with an artist as well?
Well, some things are good, some things are bad. I mean, I don't like moving all the furniture around.
Sure, that makes sense.
But, the glazing technique I'm using right now, I didn't learn in school. I'm actually learning it right now, and my wife is the one who told it to me.
Cool.
And she's principally an oil painter, and I'm an acrylic painter, so
Nice.
she learned that at CCAD.
During the day, sometimes you do mural painting as a business, kind of commercial art. How do you think that's influenced your fine art painting, if it's influenced it at all?
A little bit, I mean, just dealing with people and getting clientele in there and stuff
Yeah.
like that and figuring out how to solve certain kinds of problems. But
Sure.
as far as technique and what kind of artwork I make, not really much. It's like the difference between art and graphic design.
When you were in your 20s, you started becoming a father. How do you think that impacted your art? Did that change the style or impact how much volume you were able to produce? Or
Oh, almost stopped completely for about 5 years.
okay,
And I was in the Air National Guard during that time.
okay,
And I didn't start back up until 5 years later.
okay. So probably had kind of a drastic break as far as where you were, and then you start up, and maybe you're a little rusty, or
I was a little rusty for about a year.
Okay.
It took me a year to even be able to start executing the stuff I wanted to make.
okay. So kind of get back to where you felt comfortable. Like earlier on in your career, you did a lot more abstract artists. You learned in a kind of an abstract painter, but more recently you're kind of more into realism. Has there been a switch, or how is the difference between your painting realism versus abstract art?
Well, with the abstract art, I was learning technique and ability and all this other good stuff. And with figurative, you can bring in that abstract stuff. You
Sure.
don't have all the abstract foundation is there, and the figure is just another way of expressing that kind of abstraction.
Okay. More recently, Dayton was hit by a string of tornadoes, and I think you were involved in the tornado relief art auction. How did that come about?
Megan Filey actually has a studio upstairs from here, and she asked us to be in it, and of course we volunteered. I mean, I wanted to do something.
Yeah, I totally get that. More recently, I think last month, you were able to enter into the New American Painting, and you got one of the winning entries. How do you feel about that, and how did that happen?
Well, I feel great about it.
Yeah.
I entered into it in February.
Yeah.
I completely and utterly forgot about it until
Sure.
I got the letter.
Oh, I totally could see that. And is that more regional, or is it just by quarter, or how does that work?
It's by region, so each region has its own magazine that they put out through the
Okay.
year. I think there are 5 regions, and then they have like an MFA magazine where they go through people that graduate with their MFA.
More recently, some artists have been impacted a lot by COVID. Like, during the shutdown, some artists, they either kind of hit a mental block, or other artists have kind of had a lot more downtime, so they actually used it. How did that impact your art, or has it impacted at all?
Well, I had more downtime, so I
Sure.
used it
Okay.
immediately. I mean, I still had kind of the same schedule. My kids were at home, and I had to teach them myself.
Sure.
And so doing that was just kind of like a day job, but, you know, I had way more energy at the end of the day because I wasn't doing a physical job. And so I would just paint as much as I could.
And then more recently, right after COVID came out, it was, we're in the lockdown, we're about ready to come out, and then all of a sudden these protests just come about with this terrible event with George Floyd. Did you have any thoughts on that and how you think it's going to come about maybe in your artwork? Are you going to paint specifically on that topic, or maybe a long-term kind of timeless quality or to your artwork, or how would you interpret that subject, or do you think you'll actually paint it?
I don't know if I should. I mean, there's part of me that's like, that would be taking advantage of the man.
Yeah, and his legacy kind of.
And his legacy. And I don't want to take advantage of him. But at the same time, I kind of want to say something in my artwork that has something to do with that. So I've thought about doing the protests or just holding up a mirror to what's going on outside.
Yeah.
So that people could actually like sit and actually look at what's going on, and rather than the constant influx of outrage that happens on Facebook.
Yeah.
Either it's from the right or the left. Nobody's actually sat with this for a while and actually reflected on it. Yeah. Because it's still happening right now.
One final question I would go over is, how do you think painting in Portland and that lifestyle there versus now you moved out here, how has that changed over time as far as your ability to paint or your time? Or
I have way more time here. I mean, when I was young and 20-something, I had all the time in the world because I worked in a coffee shop, and Portland's where young people go to retire.
Sure.
But then everybody was trying to retire into Portland, and then it became a place where everybody was trying to move to. And that, if you're already not making a bunch of money and you're an artist and you're trying to do that, all that stuff, you end up working and working and working, and then you can't do your work, you can't do your artwork, and then what's the point of living in Portland?
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So we moved out here in 2013, and now we can do artwork when we want. It's much cheaper here. We bought our house outright for the down payment for a house that we were saving up for in Portland, Oregon.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Get out of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you got a studio here. It's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, and good luck on all your painting here in Dayton, Ohio.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.